Developing leaders and talents is the mastery of leadership. It's the driver behind having highly performing team, smooth operational execution, thriving culture, leaders who foster collaboration and develop others. It's behind eliminating bottlenecks and roadblocks along the way, including freeing your own time for more strategic and visionary aspects in your business and organization. It's your way to develop the leaders for the future and create a succession plan. And most of the leaders are under the impression that they are developing leaders and people. But in reality, unconsciously, something opposite is happening. Confusion, friction, disempowerment, and in a worst case, disengagement and loss of talents that had potential and could have risen to the next level of leadership. It's less about the question, do we have the right talent in an organization, but more about what capabilities and mindset I need so that I can develop leaders and develop the talents and unleash the potential within the people that I have a pleasure to lead. Welcome to Extraordinary Leadership Podcast, a place where bold, visionary, and conscious leaders rise. I'm Dagmara Asperg, executive and transformational coach, speaker, and founder of Extraordinary Leadership Movement. Here, we do not just talk about leadership. We redefine it, exploring a new paradigm, rooted in aligned energy, powerful presence and impact, and human evolution that allow leaders, businesses, and cultures to thrive. So if you're ready to lead differently and shape the future of leadership and success from the highest place of self, then you are in the right place, because extraordinary leadership comes from within. And so let us rise together. And so this is what I want to focus on today in this episode. I want to share with you from my own experience through the lens of leading in the corporate world and developing people, as well as through partnering and guiding today CEOs, executive business owners in leading and developing highly performing organizations and developing talents and leaders. And in particular, I want to put 6 key elements that I reflected on will be the most important to put a spotlight on in this episode that I believe are the most important elements into developing leaders, developing talents, unleashing human potential. And my intention is to help you to reflect on those 6 different items and elicit, obviously, what are the areas that might require from you to strengthen so that you can successfully develop leaders, develop your organization, develop your business to the next level. So let me start by saying that developing leaders and people is not an HR job, and it's not sending people to leadership development programs. Developing leaders, developing people is more about evolving yourself as a leader and embracing, shifting, evolving your mindset and evolving in your identity of who you are as a leader and how you see yourself, how you see your role. And second is about developing capabilities, skills, competencies to develop people, to help them to rise, to help them to think differently, to help them to take the bolder moves, to empower them, and to help them to find a solution by themselves, and to help them make the desired impact. So that's the premise. And the 6 things I want to share will kind of fall into this premise. So let's go one by one. So number 1 is identity and mindset. What I mean by that, many leaders have an intention. They want to develop people. They want to help them to grow, other people to grow and develop leaders. But they are trapped in identity and mindset that actually is counterproductive. What are those identity mindset? Example, being an expert. It's so common that the higher you go, you see yourself as knowing more, having experienced more, and of course, having more expertise. And so naturally, you want to give all of that wisdom and all of that experiences and help people to avoid certain mistakes, going in routes that you've been and figure already out. So obviously, you see yourself as an expert in some areas and you want to convey that expertise to others, or you want to be very much on or in and supporting and guiding. And the intention is good to help people to succeed. But of course, when you are seeing yourself as an expert, as a person that knows more than others, or that maybe think that there is a better way to do things, you are not giving people the space to grow. You're not giving people the space to find certain things by themselves. You're not giving people the space to make mistakes and learn from that. And that is one of the most common trap that will be standing in your way to really effectively help people to grow and think by themselves and solve problems by themselves and rise to the next level that you expect. So this is one example of identity, and I've been myself in that identity, so I know exactly how it feels, and I know that intention is always pure and good. But one of the most important switch here will be to shift from being an expert to being a catalyst, to seeing yourself as a catalyst of growth or multiplier, in other words, of impact and growth, and someone that don't come to the table with answers, but someone that help others to find the answers. The first very important part will be that evolution, letting go of knowing and having experience and all that you bring, and opening yourself to new possibilities and being the catalyst. Include letting go of certain aspects and patterns that maybe have actually brought you to where you are now. And some of them may be in an area of control, and which can be symbolized as strong leadership, or can be an area of tendency to be perfectionist and trying to really go into all details and figuring out all the scenarios that can be possible. Those are just examples, and there are many others, of what you will be invited to let go of so that you can really fully step, I like to use the word embody, in other words, become or be, lead from the next level of yourself, the catalyst, the multiplier of growth. So just checking with yourself, which role are you playing more? In which identity you are more anchored? In being an expert, wanting to always have an opinion and mentor and give the next steps and solve the problems, or the catalyst of growth of others that helps people to grow, helps people to find out the answers, helps people to think by themselves. The beautiful metaphor here is this one. Are you giving the fish to people? Then you are sitting in more an expertise type of identity. Or are you helping people to fish? That is a beautiful metaphor to compare between expert and a catalyst. And that all starts with your wiring, with your identity, with your attachments, and with your patterns of thinking. And that is where actually the whole thing starts, with your own evolution as a leader. That needs to happen on identity and mindset and body level. So that's number one. The second key important element in this whole construct of developing leaders and people is to define who do you want to develop and where do you want to develop them in. The larger the organization, the bigger pool of potential talents, the more external instruments and assessments most likely you would choose to bring. Independent from the size of the organization and which solution you will choose, there is a need for understanding people. There is a need for understanding what the people want, where they want to really go to, and to help understand what are their strengths and where do they see they want to grow. And also to understand what is their attitude, mindset, and potential. Not just the past results, which you can see in the performance reviews, but truly the potential. Number one is their willingness to grow. That is a sign of a high potential person. The willingness to grow, the willingness to try new things, the willingness, the openness to be coachable and to develop in different directions and to learn and evolve. Two is the capacity of emotional intelligence. How do they emotionally deal with other people? What's their attitude? How they make others people feel? And the three is the ownership. Wanting to take ownership, right? Of functions, roles, projects, initiatives, all of that. Demonstrated already in other ways. So those are the three that, for me, really always played a very important role into eliciting who really has a potential for the next level, for growth, for being the next level leader. So quite opposite people that are not coachables, that don't want to grow, that just basically focus on performance but not people and want to just achieve numbers by any means and doesn't matter if they build the bridges, or the people that are looking for excuses, blame others to take an ownership, will not be the great candidate for a leadership potential. The point number 3 is about delegation. It's about strategic delegation and empowerment. And essentially, it's about two things. One, it's about what you delegate, what you choose to delegate, and what kind of responsibility you give to people. And of course, strategic delegation is giving people the areas that help them to grow and develop the necessary capabilities for the next level. So having identified where the people want to be in the organization have potential for and what they need to develop, now is the time to delegate strategically, to give them that piece of ownership where they can develop, right? When you can practice it. So that's kind of number one when I'm thinking about strategic delegation. And it's, of course, not about delegating just the task and area without the ability of decision making. So it's very crucial that by this delegation, we also empower people to take decisions for that functions for the area. But the second is, of course, about trust and letting go, which for many leaders, and it has been as well for me, can be very challenging. Again, going back to this expert and catalyst narrative, when you maybe have been managing that area of the business and now you're delegating it to someone else, to your successor or a future successor, obviously you will need to put yourself in a back seat so that it really works well. Otherwise, you take too much space and you don't give them space to grow and to navigate and organize it in their own way. And that will require you to letting go on a lot of areas, giving visibility to those other people on these topics, on these areas, and especially these little moments when all people come to you with a question that in the past you've been answering, and now you're passing the ball to the other person that you delegated to. That's so important. That is where you are going to support the other person to really effectively grow into that role, into that ownership of that area that you delegated it to. It's all about pulling yourself back and trusting more, which again, depending how you're wired, depending what is your belief system, and depending on from which place you come, might be actually something that you need to grow into. Step number 4, if you like, or aspect number 4, is about your ability to help people to grow. And here, very specifically, your ability to coach people. Now, when I'm using the term coach, I'm not talking about training and I'm not talking about mentoring. I'm not talking only about sharing from your expertise and giving advice, which is of value in some moments, of course. But I am predominantly talking about your ability to ask powerful questions, your ability to listen actively and empathetically, your ability to be patient, your ability to create a psychological space in which people can think and share their real challenges, and your ability to ask questions that shift perspectives, that open new possibilities, that help think bigger, and to help them to take courageous actions and walk out with clarity and a feeling of I'm empowered to take that step. That's what coaching is about. And the more masterful leaders are more masterful coaches. For me, embracing the competences and the mindset of coaching has been one of the most transformational thing I could give to myself that time as a leader in corporate world. It completely transformed the way I have been able to support others to develop, to grow, to become leaders. And so I see it. And so I consider that this competence, capability, if you like, is essential for leaders to develop. This ability of developing coaching competences and skills a leader will help you to eliminate the repetitive conversations, the stalled and procrastination, the delays in your projects. It will help you to move from convincing and repeating yourself all the time to really truly empowering, supporting, helping people to navigate, guiding in an empowered way the leaders that you lead and the people that you lead. So super crucial, important function. The one Simple distinguish of what's the difference when you are in so-called coaching hat or expertise hat, if you like, is 80-20 rule. Even one-on-one conversation, most of the time you are talking and explaining something to people, you most likely still in the expert role. If 80% of your time you're listening and asking good questions that people actually come out with ideas, solutions, and clarity of actions, that is where you can sense that you are more in a coaching mode. And yes, as I say, there is always a space for sharing advice, mentoring, or giving an opinion. But the most important way how people grow is through thinking by themselves and evolving. And this is where the coaching, actually, the approach comes in leadership. The fifth element in mastering developing leaders is about creating an environment. It's about creating the environment of growth that is obviously based on psychological safety, where people feel safe to make mistakes, safe to fail, safe to not know yet, safe to open up with challenges and questions and emotions that they're dealing with, either in one-on-one or on a group level. If there is no safety in growth, if people are tiptoeing, in other words, and afraid of making mistakes because they will be judged by you or by other people, they will be maybe laughed at, or there will be maybe consequences from their career, the people cannot grow. There is always this shadow, there is always this fear, and that fear is actually creating a tunnel vision. That fear is shrinking creativity and innovative power, and that fear is keeping people small. So one of the key things to master is creating an environment of growth that is strongly anchored in psychological safety. And one other thing here, it's not only in one-on-one conversation, but environment, which means creating that environment in your team. And then that team obviously is going to populate that environment in our whole organization, because that's how we cascade and create a ripple effect and create a culture. And one last thing on that topic is this. In order to create a psychological safety environment, you will need to create that safety. You will need to create that psychological safety from inside out. If you feel not safe within yourself, not trusting yourself, if you are still having a lot of fears that you obviously don't show outside, but carry inside, or suppressed emotions, and your nervous system is constantly on survival mode or on alert, and you are in anxiety, you are not going to create a psychological safety space. It's given. State of being, mastery of the state, is one of the key ingredients here to creating a psychological safety, alongside with point number one, which is the identity and mindset that you carry. And the last one, the number 6, which is key in supporting you in developing leaders and talents, is about those resources and support system beyond yourself. And I'm talking here about executive coaching. I'm talking here about leadership programs. I'm talking about group coaching for leaders, any form of support that help leaders to grow, evolve, and step into their next level. And if you are where you are today, you most likely you have already been either in leadership development programs or experience a powerful executive coaching. Now, what is the most important, in my opinion, about any of those choices and any of those supports and ecosystems is this: is helping leaders, first of all, to understand who they are in their true expression, beneath the fears, beneath the conditioning. Help them to really step into the most powerful version of themselves and potential, in other words. Help them to liberate themselves from the limiting beliefs they carry, from the fears they carry, and from suppressed emotions they carry that are stored not only in the mind, but also in the body. It's about helping leaders with practical resources and tools to master their state, master their emotions, and master their mind. Because essentially, those are the elements that help leaders to navigate in these most challenging times and lead their teams and themselves. 80% of success comes from within, 20% from skills and competencies. And this is where support should be focused. So it's, for example, less about the frameworks of how to give a successful feedback or how to lead a performance conversation, but it's more about how the leader prepared for that conversation, what's the state of mind, and what's this level of trust that the leader needs to develop so that he or she can navigate that conversation effectively. So those are the 6 that I believe really, if you master each of them, if you have all of the 6 elements in your leadership, in your ecosystem, are going to tremendously in developing leaders and developing your talent pipeline and in equipping your organization and elevating your organization and essentially, of course, your business. And as you've seen, there is a blend between evolving yourself, shifting in mindset, evolving your identity, becoming the catalyst, becoming the multiplier of growth, merged together with competencies and skills that you need to embrace and embody that help you to help other people to grow and unleash their potential. And it's also about the system and structure that can support you, in other words, the ecosystem that supports you in developing leaders beyond yourself. And they are all having its place. They are all very important. I invite you to reflect. I invite you to reflect on these 6 points that I've been sharing with you. Checking with yourself, honestly, where are you today on each of the 6? You and your organization, of course. Giving yourself a tangibility between 1 and 10 for each of these points will help you to elicit where you and your organization might need to strengthen. And if you want to elevate your leadership and master those different components that I've been talking about today that help you to develop your leaders and successfully your organization and gain partners that can help you actually to elevate and support your leaders, then let's have a conversation. Before I close today, I want to ask you for a favor. I want to ask you to subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet and you value the insights that you're getting, because it helps me to reach more leaders. Secondly, share that episode with other leaders, with one leader at least that you feel would benefit to also get access to what I've been sharing today. And share with me in comments, what are you taking away from today? That would be very helpful for me to see. And for now, I'm thanking for your time. Thank you for being here, and I'm seeing you next time. Thank you for joining me today in this episode of Extraordinary Leadership Podcast. Remember, true leadership isn't about doing more. It's about becoming and being more. And if this conversation sparked something within you, I invite you to honor it. Share this with another visionary leader who is ready to rise. And follow me for more conversations that elevate who you are and how you lead. And together, shape a future of leadership. And until next time, stay extraordinary.